Welcome back to my channel, US Rare Coins News, Top 1. Today we are looking at a tiny coin that most people ignore, the 1970 Roosevelt dime, and here's the shocking part. Some of these little 10-cent coins have sold for hundreds, even over $1,000, depending on condition and errors. That's a serious upgrade from pocket change. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what makes the 1970 dime special, the rare details collectors hunt for, the mint mark you must check, and how much this coin is actually worth in today's market. And trust me, the most valuable examples are not what most people expect. Take a close look at the coin. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The word liberty curves along the left. In God We Trust sits just below his chin. And right above the date 1970, you'll see a tiny D. That small letter means it was minted at the Denver Mint. Now flip it over. The back shows a torch in the center, symbolizing liberty. An olive branch on the left for peace. An oak branch on the right for strength. United States of America across the top. One dime at the bottom. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. And that's exactly why people overlook it. Here's where things get interesting. By 1970, dimes were no longer made of silver. That ended in 1964. The 1970 dime is made of copper and nickel, what collectors call clad composition. So unlike older silver dimes, you won't get value from metal content alone. The real value comes from condition and rare mint errors, and condition changes everything. The Denver Mint struck over 345 million dimes in 1970. That sounds like a lot, and it is. Most of them are worth just face value. But finding one in pristine, untouched condition is much harder than you think. When collectors talk about value, they look at grading. Coins graded MS65 or higher, meaning mint state, no wear, strong luster, can sell for around $15 to $30. Not bad for 10 cents, but here's the twist: that if you find a 1970 dime graded MS67 with blazing luster and sharp details, auction records show examples selling for several $100s. And in rare cases, top pop specimens have crossed the $1,000 mark at major auctions. Imagine pulling that from a roll of dimes. Now let's talk about errors, because this is where things get exciting. Some 1970 dimes have been found with off-center strikes. That's when the coin wasn't properly aligned during minting, and part of the design is missing. Depending on how dramatic the error is, those can sell for $50 to a few $100s. There are also double die varieties to look for. Check the lettering carefully, especially Liberty and the date. If you see clear doubling, not just machine doubling, but strong, separated lines, that can increase value significantly. Another one to watch for is a rotated reverse error. Hold the coin upright, then flip it top to bottom. If the back design isn't perfectly aligned, you might have a rotated die. Collectors love these kinds of mint mistakes, and here's a small detail many people miss. Luster matters. When you tilt the coin under light, you should see a smooth, cartwheel effect, a spinning shine that moves across the surface. If that shine is strong and uninterrupted, your die might grade higher than you think. Think about this for a second. In 1970, people were spending these without a second thought. They bought coffee, paid for gas, dropped them in vending machines. And today, the very best preserved examples are locked in protective holders, selling for hundreds of dollars. That's the beauty of coin collecting. History hiding in plain sight. So what is the real market value today? A typical circulated 1970 Roosevelt dime is worth 10 cents. Maybe a little more in bulk. An uncirculated example in nice condition can range from $15 to $30. High-grade certified pieces can bring several $100s. And exceptional top-grade examples at auction have reached over $1,000. No hype. No exaggeration. Just condition, rarity at the highest grades, and collector demand. Now I want to know, do you own a 1970 Roosevelt dime? Have you ever checked your change for high-grade coins or mint errors? And if you could add one rare dime to your collection, which year would it be? Before you click away, take another look at your coin jar. That tiny D mint mark could be sitting there right now. Top 2. Today we are looking at a dime most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up, the 1990 D Roosevelt dime, and here's the wild part. In the right condition, this tiny 10-cent coin has sold for hundreds of dollars, and special error versions can bring even more. That's a serious jump from something most of us toss into a jar without thinking. Stick with me, because I'm going to show you exactly what makes the 1990 D dime interesting, the mint mark you need to check, the rare errors collectors search for, and what real examples have actually sold for. And near the end, I'll tell you the kind of condition that turns this ordinary coin into a serious collectible. First, let's look at it closely. Bring the camera in tight. On the front, you'll see the familiar profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The word liberty runs along the left edge. In God We Trust sits just below the chin. And right above the date 1990, you'll see a small D. That D stands for the Denver Mint. Flip the coin over. The reverse shows a torch in the center. An olive branch to the left. An oak branch to the right. United States of America around the top and one dime at the bottom. Clean. Simple. Familiar. So what makes this coin special? In 1990, the Denver Mint produced over 1 billion dimes. That's a huge number. So in circulated condition, this coin is worth exactly 10 cents. Nothing more, but here's where it changes. Condition is everything. Most 1990 D dimes went straight into circulation. They got scratched, worn down, and lost their shine. But a tiny percentage were saved in pristine condition. We're talking blazing mint luster, no wear, sharp details on Roosevelt's hair and cheek, strong torch lines on the back that if you zoom in under bright light, you should see what collectors call the cartwheel effect. That smooth, spinning shine across the surface. If that luster is strong and untouched, you may be holding something better than pocket change. Uncirculated examples graded around MS65 can sell for about $5 to $15. Not life-changing. But it's already 50 to 100 times face value. Now here's the part most people don't know. High-grade examples graded MS67 or higher are surprisingly tough to find. When you reach those top population levels, coins with nearly flawless surfaces and exceptional strike, auction prices have reached several $100s. Some top certified pieces have crossed the $500 mark depending on appeal and demand. For a dime from 1990, that's impressive, but wait. It gets more interesting. There are error coins. Keep your eyes open for off-center strikes. If part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't properly aligned when struck, collectors pay strong premiums. The more dramatic the error, while still showing the full date, the more valuable it becomes. Look for broad strikes too. That's when the coin was struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread slightly wider than normal. These can sell from $50 to a few $100s depending on condition. Another possibility is a rotated die error. Hold the coin upright, flip it top to bottom. If the reverse isn't perfectly aligned, you might have something special, and then there's doubling. Check liberty and the date carefully. Use a magnifying glass or macro lens. True double die errors show clear separation in the letters, not just flat, shelf-like doubling. If you find strong doubling, that can significantly increase value. Think about this. In 1990, these coins were buying snacks, bus rides, arcade games. Nobody was thinking about grading or auction prices. But decades later, collectors are paying serious money for the very best examples. That's the magic of condition rarity. Not rare because of low mintage. Rare because almost nobody saved perfect ones. So what's the real market value today? A circulated 1990 D dime is worth 10 cents. A bright uncirculated example might sell for $5 to $15. High-grade certified coins can bring $100 to $500 depending on grade and appeal. Major errors can range from $50 to several hundred. No exaggeration. Just collector demand and certified condition driving the price. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever checked your change for high-grade coins? Do you own a 1990 D dime in uncirculated condition? And if you could find one error coin in your pocket tomorrow, which type would you want it to be? Next time you see a 1990 D dime, don't ignore it. Tilt it under the light. Check that mint mark. Look for errors. Because sometimes value isn't about age. It's about preservation. Top 3. Today we are looking at a dime most people would never think twice about, the 1985 P. Roosevelt dime, and here's the crazy part. In top condition, this little 10-cent coin has sold for hundreds of dollars. That's right, a coin you might have spent on candy could be worth far more than you imagined. That I end this video, I'll show you exactly what makes the 1985 P dime interesting, why some examples are surprisingly hard to find in high grade, the errors you need to watch for, and how much real collectors are actually paying for them today. And near the end, I'll tell you the specific condition that turns this common coin into a serious collectible. Let's zoom in close. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Liberty runs along the left side. In God We Trust is tucked beneath the chin. And just to the left of the date 1985, you'll see a small P mint mark. That P stands for the Philadelphia Mint. Before 1980, Philadelphia dimes didn't carry a mint mark. So seeing that P tells you this coin comes from the modern mint mark era, flip it over. Bring the camera in even tighter. You'll see the torch in the center, symbolizing liberty. An olive branch for peace. An oak branch for strength. United States of America around the top. One dime at the bottom, simple design. Clean lines. Nothing flashy. So why would anyone pay big money for this? Here's the thing. In 1985, Philadelphia struck over 1.1 billion dimes. That sounds like the opposite of rare. And in circulated condition, it absolutely is. A worn 1985 P dime is worth exactly 10 cents, but rarity isn't always about mintage numbers. Sometimes it's about survival in perfect condition. Most of these coins were heavily used. They went through vending machines, cash registers, and pockets. Over time, they picked up tiny scratches, dull surfaces, and small nicks. Finding one today that looks like it just left the mint is much harder than people expect. This is where grading comes in. If you find an uncirculated example with strong luster and clean surfaces, it might grade around MS65. Those typically sell for a few dollars, maybe 5 to 15 depending on eye appeal, but here's where it gets interesting. When you move into MS67 territory, coins with nearly flawless surfaces, sharp strike, and blazing mint luster, the population drops dramatically. Auction records show high-grade certified examples selling for a few $100s. Some top population pieces have approached the $500 range when demand is strong. For a dime from the mid-1980s, that surprises a lot of collectors. Now let's talk about errors, because that's where the excitement really builds. Keep an eye out for off-center strikes. If part of the design is missing but the full date is visible, collectors love those. The more dramatic the off-center error, the higher the premium. Look for double die varieties as well. Use a magnifying glass and examine liberty and the date. True double dies show clear separation in the lettering. Not flat, machine doubling, but real, noticeable doubling that looks like two impressions slightly shifted. There are also broad strikes and rotated die errors. Hold the coin upright, flip it top to bottom. If the reverse isn't perfectly aligned, you could have a rotated die error. These aren't common, and collectors will pay extra for strong rotations. And here's something many people overlook: luster. Tilt the coin under a bright light and watch for that smooth cartwheel shine moving across the surface. If the shine is strong and uninterrupted, that's a great sign. Dull, gray surfaces usually mean lower grade. Think about this. In 1985, people were focused on payphones, cassette tapes, and arcade machines. Nobody was carefully saving rolls of brand new dimes thinking about auction value decades later. That's why top-grade examples are scarce today. Now let's talk real numbers. A circulated 1985 P dime is worth face value. An uncirculated example might sell for $5 to $15. High-grade certified coins in MS67 condition can sell for several $100s depending on quality and market demand. Major mint errors can range anywhere from $50 to a few hundred. No hype. Just condition, collector demand, and certified rarity at the top grades. So here's my question for you. Have you ever checked your change for high-grade coins? Do you own a 1985 p dime that still has strong mint luster? And if you could add one modern coin to your collection, which year would you choose? Next time you see a 1985 p dime, don't just spend it. Take a closer look. That small p might not seem like much, but in the right condition, it can make all the difference. Top 4. Today we are looking at a dime from 2008 that most people still have sitting in a jar somewhere, and yes, some of these have sold for hundreds of dollars. It sounds impossible. A modern dime. From 2008. Worth serious money. But once you understand condition, mint errors, and collector demand, this little coin starts to look very different. In the next few minutes, I'll show you what makes the 2008 Roosevelt dime worth checking, the tiny detail near the date that matters, the rare errors that can multiply its value, and the real prices these have brought at auction. And near the end, I'll tell you exactly what separates a 10-cent coin from a high-grade collectible. Let's bring the camera in close. On the front, you'll see the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The word liberty runs along the left side. In God We Trust sits just below the chin. And to the right of the date 2008, you'll see a small D. That D stands for the Denver Mint. Flip it over slowly. The reverse shows the torch in the center, symbolizing liberty. An olive branch on one side. An oak branch on the other. United States of America around the top. One dime at the bottom. It looks completely ordinary. And that's exactly why most people ignore it. In 2008, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of dimes. So in everyday circulated condition, this coin is worth face value. 10 cents. That's it, but here's where things change. Modern coins often suffer from heavy contact marks because they're produced in huge quantities and bagged in bulk. That means finding a truly flawless example is much harder than people expect. When collectors talk about value, they talk about grade. If you find a bright, uncirculated 2008 D dime with strong luster and minimal marks, it might grade MS65. Coins at that level usually sell for a few dollars. Not dramatic, but already above face value. Now here's the twist: when you get into MS67 or MS68 condition, nearly perfect surfaces, sharp strike, strong torch details, full bands visible on the reverse, the number of surviving coins drops fast. Auction records show top-graded examples selling for a few $100s. Some exceptional MS68 pieces have approached the $500 range depending on demand. That's a huge jump for a coin you might still find in pocket change, and we're not done yet. Let's talk errors. Look closely at the lettering. Use a magnifying glass or macro lens. Check liberty and the date for doubling. True double die errors show clear separation in the letters, not flat or smeared lines. Check for off-center strikes. If the coin design is shifted and part of the rim is missing, but the full date is still visible, collectors often pay strong premiums. Broad strikes are another possibility. These happen when the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread slightly wider than normal. And don't forget rotated die errors. Hold the coin upright and flip it top to bottom. If the reverse isn't aligned correctly, you might have something special. Here's something many collectors overlook: full bands. On the reverse torch, there are horizontal bands. If those bands are fully separated and sharply struck, that adds premium value. High-grade coins with full bands designation are especially desirable. Think about the year 2008 for a moment. Smartphones were just becoming mainstream. The world was focused on big events, not saving rolls of shiny new dimes. Most of these coins went straight into circulation. Few people carefully preserved flawless examples. That's why condition rarity matters so much. Now let's talk real numbers. A circulated 2008 D dime is worth 10 cents. A nice uncirculated example might sell for $2 to $10. High-grade certified coins in MS67 or better can reach $100 to several $100s. Exceptional top population examples have approached around $500 at auction. Major mint errors can range from $50 to a few hundred depending on the type and severity. No exaggeration. Just grade, I appeal, and collector demand. So let me ask you something. Have you checked your 2008 dimes recently? Do you look for full bands or mint errors when you get change? And if you found a nearly perfect modern coin, would you send it in for grading? Top 5. Today we are looking at a dime from 1991 that most people would spend without a second thought, yet in the right condition, this tiny coin has sold for hundreds of dollars. It sounds hard to believe. A modern Roosevelt dime. Not silver. Not ancient. Just 1991. But once you understand grading, mint errors, and something called full bands, the 1991 D becomes a lot more interesting. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly what to look for on this coin, why high-grade examples are tougher than you think, the rare errors that can boost value fast, and the real auction prices these have reached. And near the end, I'll tell you what separates a 10-cent coin from a serious collector piece. Let's bring the camera in close. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Liberty runs along the left side. In God We Trust sits just under the chin. And to the right of the date 1991, you'll spot a small D. That D tells you this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Flip it over slowly. On the reverse, you'll see the torch in the center, symbolizing liberty. An olive branch for peace. An oak branch for strength. United States of America across the top. One dime at the bottom. It looks simple. Clean. Ordinary, and that's exactly why it gets ignored. In 1991, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of dimes. So in circulated condition, this coin is worth exactly 10 cents. Nothing special, but here's where it gets interesting. Modern coins were produced in massive quantities and stored in large mint bags. That process often caused tiny nicks and contact marks before the coins even reached circulation. So finding one that is nearly flawless today is much harder than people expect. This is where grade matters. If you find a bright uncirculated 1991 D dime with strong luster and minimal marks, it might grade around MS65. Those typically sell for a few dollars. Not exciting yet, but once you move into MS67 condition, the population drops sharply. Coins at that level have very clean surfaces, sharp details, and strong eye appeal. Auction records show high-grade MS67 examples selling for over $100, sometimes reaching into the several $100 range depending on quality and demand. Now here's something even more important: full bands. On the reverse torch, look closely at the horizontal bands. If those bands are fully separated with clear lines and no blending, collectors call that full bands. It indicates a sharp strike. High-grade coins with full bands are much scarcer and can command strong premiums. Zoom in tight on the torch. If those lines are crisp and complete, you might be looking at something special. And we're not done. There are error coins to watch for. Check the lettering on Liberty and the date for doubling. True double dies show distinct separation in the letters, not flat or smeared lines. Look for off-center strikes where part of the design is shifted. As long as the full date is visible, these can carry real value. You might also find rotated die errors. Hold the coin upright and flip it top to bottom. If the reverse isn't perfectly aligned, that misalignment could add collector interest. Broad strikes are another possibility, where the coin appears slightly wider than normal because it was struck without the retaining collar. Now think about the year 1991. The internet wasn't mainstream yet. Most people weren't saving rolls of dimes for future grading. These coins went straight into cash registers, soda machines, and pockets. That's why pristine examples are scarce today. So what's the real market value? A circulated 1991 D dime is worth face value. A standard uncirculated example might sell for $2 to $10. High-grade certified coins in MS67 condition can reach $100 to several $100 depending on eye appeal and demand. Full bands examples in top grades often bring the strongest prices. Major mint errors can range from $50 to a few hundred. No hype. Just condition, rarity and collector demand. Now I want to hear from you. Have you checked your 1991 dimes for full bands? Do you look for mint errors in your change? And if you could discover one high-grade modern coin in your pocket today, would you send it in for grading? Next time you see a 1991 D dime, don't dismiss it. Tilt it under the light. Look for that smooth cartwheel luster. Study the torch bands. Because sometimes the value isn't in the age, it's in the condition. That if you enjoyed this deep dive into the 1991 D Roosevelt dime and want to uncover more hidden value in everyday coins, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the next one. Your next great find might already be in your change.